colleagues. Everyone is ready? I think that's a bit high. Let me put that this way. Hold on. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde.
Good afternoon, everyone.
En primer lugar, quiero
I would like to start by thanking my fellow foreign ministers and other representatives of the member and observer countries of the Lima Group for being here today with us in Gatineau for this important meeting. Today, we discussed the urgency of the situation in Venezuela. We reinforced the importance of the role of the international community in supporting Venezuelans in their desire to restore democracy to their country and organize free, fair, and credible presidential elections. Ultimately, the people of Venezuela will determine their own future. However, we agreed that we will be by their side every step of the way. And you can see we are united. Me and my colleagues, we will speak together to the international community. The international community has an important role to play in supporting this process. Today, the Lima Group is issuing an appeal to all countries who share our desire to see a return to democracy in Venezuela. We must join together. We need to speak with a single and unified voice as international partners to find new approaches to put an end to the human, environmental, and economic crisis that is occurring in Venezuela right now, while respecting the choice of the people of Venezuela and of interim President Juan Guaido. The path ahead will not necessarily be easy, but as we move forward, let's remember why we are doing this. The people of Venezuela deserve human rights. The people of Venezuela deserve dignity. The people of Venezuela deserve democracy. The people of Venezuela deserve our support.
To say a few words on our behalf in English, following our very good session that we had today. Today, with my colleagues representing the Lima Group, we discussed the urgency of the situation in Venezuela and reinforced with one single voice the importance of the role of the international community in supporting Venezuelans in their desire to return democracy to their country and free, fair, and credible presidential elections. Ultimately, the people of Venezuela will determine their future, but we agreed that we will be by their side every single step of the way. The international community has an important role to play in supporting this process, and we stand here united in support of this process. Today, my colleagues from the Lima Group, we are issuing an appeal to all countries who share our desire to see a return to democracy to join together. We need to speak with one single voice, a unified voice, as international partners to find new approaches to end the political, humanitarian, and economic crisis in line with the desire of the Venezuelan people and interim President Juan Guaido. The path ahead may be tough, but as we move forward, let's remember why we are doing this. The people of Venezuela deserve human rights. The people of Venezuela deserve dignity. The people of Venezuela deserve democracy. The people of Venezuela deserve our support. With that, ladies and gentlemen, with my co-chair, the Foreign Minister of Peru, we will be happy to take your questions, either in French, English, or Spanish. If you want to venture in other languages, I may have to draw on my esteemed colleagues. But we will first turn to David Lundgren.
Yeah, good afternoon, Minister. David Lundgren from Reuters. You keep talking about what the international community has to do, but it strikes me as though the international community is not necessarily very committed to this struggle. Why would you think that is?
Well, I would say that today, that's why we gathered the Lima Group. As you know, Juan Guaido came to visit the Prime Minister of Canada, did an international tour to gather support. And I think what you're seeing today is that we need to reinvigorate our efforts. There's 3 words which came out today in our discussion. It was about unity, emergency, and urgency and democracy. So unity, urgency, and democracy. And those 3 words embody really what we were saying. We said unity because we're speaking with one voice, and we want to make sure that other nations around the world can unify with us in speaking with one voice to obviously seek a path towards a return to democracy, a peaceful return to democracy in Venezuela, which is led by Venezuelan. We talk about urgency because time is of the essence. We are facing a humanitarian crisis and an environmental crisis of historic proportion. So the world community, we want to support, obviously, our colleagues in Venezuela. And then when we talk about democracy, that's the only way forward, obviously, for the people of Venezuela to restore security, stability, and prosperity in this country. And obviously, as foreign minister of the region, we have a duty and keen interest to see a restoration of democracy in Venezuela, in our hemisphere.
You used the word reinvigorate. Why did you use that word? That implies that up until now you've not been working to 100% potential.
No, is that over time, I mean, as you will know, and as we discuss with colleagues, we have tried different things over time. And I think after the tour of Juan Guaido, we realized that we need to reinvigorate our effort. Time is of the essence. The people of Venezuela are asking us to act. They want our support. They want to continue and make sure that we explore additional ways, obviously, to have this transition. In light of the humanitarian crisis, we know that there is close to 6 million people which have been displaced. There is an environmental crisis of unbelievable proportion that is going on now in Venezuela. And I think when you look at our hemisphere, we're speaking with one voice, but we seek, as we speak today, we seek to engage our colleagues around the world so that we can work together as one unified voice behind the people of Venezuela.
Hi, Minister. It's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News here in Canada. The last time the Lima Group met, they called on the military to switch sides. That has not happened, and I'm wondering what progress has been made since the last meeting and what kind of change you're hoping will come out of this one.
Well, the last time we spoke with Juan Guaido, as you know, when he came here a few weeks ago with the Prime Minister and I, what we see is that the opposition is obviously unified. The opposition is unified in their quest for democracy, for restoring to a peaceful process full democratic rights to the people of Venezuela. They have been waiting way too long for democracy to return. And I can tell you when I met with him in private, he relies on this Lima Group to bring this momentum behind him and behind the people of Venezuela who are seeking a return. Like I said, the 3 words that came out today, whether it's about unity, whether it's about urgency and democracy, really embodied, I think, everything we have discussed together also with Juan Guaido. So we are pushing because having free, fair, and credible presidential election is the only path towards restoring democracy for the Venezuelan people. We realize as the Lima Group, we cannot do it on behalf of the Venezuelan, but one thing we agreed upon is that we can be side by side with them at every step of the way for that to happen as quickly as possible.
On a separate subject, Minister, you were just in Barbados trying to secure support from different Caribbean nations when it comes to Canada's UN Security Council bid. I'm wondering whether you got any assurances and whether you think that Canada has a realistic chance of winning that seat.
Well, definitely. We had a discussion with our Caribbean colleagues, and we were talking about the positive voice that Canada can have, because one of the things we were saying to the CARICOM, the nation of the Caribbean, is how can we amplify their voice? How can the concerns and the reality and the challenges, the opportunities that you find in countries in the Caribbean can be heard? Canada has the unique privilege of being at the G7, the G20, La Francophonie, Commonwealth, NATO, NORAD. a lot of places where we can bring the voice. And I will tell you, we even discuss, I don't want to announce something that may come in the future, but I think I can speak on behalf of many colleagues behind me that we said, you know what? Not only we should do it with the Caribbean nation, but why not with all Latin America? Why not Canada, Central America, South America? Why don't we come together as foreign minister to talk about the blue economy, to talk about climate change, to talk about economic security? So I think there's a lot of good things that are happening today when we meet. But first and foremost, we are here because we are firmly behind Juan Guaido and obviously his foreign minister, which is with us.
Hi, Minister. Janice Dixon, The Globe and Mail. I'm curious if you can tell me if Juan Guaido ever asked Ottawa to expel the remaining Maduro diplomats that are working here in Ottawa.
I will not, for obvious reason, I won't go into the specifics of my discussion with Juan Guaido, but suffice to say that the sanctions that we have imposed on 112 officials of the Maduro regime are in place. We believe in these sanctions. We believe in the power of the sanctions to send a very strong message to the regime there. But we also talk with Guaido about the way forward. How can we complement that? And I think what you see behind a unified voice behind Juan Guaido is very powerful. This group has been meeting, I'm told, more than 18 times. So clearly today what you're seeing is that we realize that we had taken a path, we have faced some challenges, but now with the international tour that Juan Guaido did, we have a renewed momentum. I would say we're reinvigorating our efforts to make sure that we put not only the Lima Group, but the international community firmly behind him, firmly behind the people of Venezuela.
Is that something that you would consider doing, expelling the 3 remaining Maduro-appointed diplomats?
We will consider things as they come. You know me as foreign minister, I go step by steps. Today, the steps is obviously taking with one voice and making sure that we can come out of this meeting, and you can see it. We are together on this stage to send a very clear, powerful, and strong message to the international community, to obviously the Maduro regime. Hopefully they're watching us so they can see that we are more united than we have ever been in making sure that we work together to provide a peaceful transition to democracy in Venezuela.
Yeah, Mike Blanchfield, Canadian Press. This is for either of the ministers, the hosts and our co-host. How concerned are you that there just isn't enough will left in Venezuela, with so many people having fled to your countries and others, to basically rise up and use all of this goodwill that you're directing at them? The Army, you made the appeal to the military 1 year ago here, and nothing happened. What's the way forward?
Joseph, if you would.
Thank you very much. Well, you touch on an issue that is very important for all of us. We are extremely concerned on the political, economic, and humanitarian situation inside Venezuela and also outside because of the big exodus of Venezuelans to the region and to the world. And that's the reason for our work today here. We want to support Venezuelans. The solution needs to be, on the first place, a Venezuelan solution with the support of the international community. And this is part of the message. We are sending a strong message of unity behind the only way to return Venezuela to democracy, which is through free, fair presidential elections in the shortest time possible. So that's the way we are working. We put behind any difference between us in order to stress that we are united on this, and we will work very closely with our partners.
Anyone else want to add? Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead. Did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think my esteemed colleague from Peru has stated the view not only of his delegation, but I think it reflects very well the position and the discussions we had today as part of the Lima Group.
Okay. And as a follow-up, what other international countries do you want to see step up? And are you concerned that Venezuela could be heading towards a failed state status?
Well, the purpose of, and thank you for your question, because today is the beginning of something else. Today is the beginning where we said we need to engage other. We're going to reach out. Each and every one of us has agreed that we will reach out because, as you know, there have been a number of voices around the world to talk about restoring democracy in Venezuela. So one of the things we're going to be doing is reach out to the other nation. I think the world of unity is not only amongst ourselves here, but I think the international community should come with us, shoulder by shoulder with us, with the people of Venezuela. We have charted a way forward. We have put something together, which we're going to continue to work with the delegation. And I think this is the time to unite behind Juan Guaido as he made this international tour, as he got the support from many nations. Now it's for us to unify, make sure that we apply all our minds and support to the people of Venezuela.
Hello, Minister. Daniel Studnev, TASS News Agency. Is Lima Group ready to work with Russia to overcome the crisis in Venezuela? Thank you.
I think you should ask Russia if they want to play a role in helping. It's not for me to obviously speak on behalf of another country, but what I would say is that certainly we would welcome anyone who believes in a peaceful transition to democracy and support the will of the people of Venezuela. This is the key way of restoring and ending the humanitarian crisis, the environmental crisis we're seeing. And certainly we welcome if there's anyone who wants to join in the common endeavor that we have supported, that we are supporting. Certainly we would like to see more than words but action, which would be concrete in supporting our endeavor.
But if Russia will say yes, are you ready to work with Russia?
I judge nations not by their words but by their action. So let me see some action, and I can tell you more after I've seen any actions on the ground, which would be going in the direction that you're suggesting.
Minister Avendar, CBC News. You committed to talk to Cuba about its role in supporting the Maduro regime, and Canada has invited the Foreign Minister of Cuba to Ottawa for those kinds of talks. Have you seen any progress? Has Cuba withdrawn any agents or other personnel from Venezuela? And if not, what would be the next steps with Cuba?
Well, like I said before, I think we will leave this meeting today and trying to engage other nations. Clearly, we would be talking to nations who want to pursue the same kind of approach that the one we have laid out. If Cuba or any other nation would want with action to promote a transfer, a peaceful transition to democracy in Venezuela, in line with the wish of the people of Venezuela. Certainly, as you're aware, I did talk to the Foreign Minister of Cuba on separate topics, but we did touch on the situation of Venezuela, which is of concern to us. As you know, we have a relationship with Cuba, but for the time being, I think we need to engage many more nations, especially those of the International Contact Group in Europe. You have Norway, which had started something. I think the key message today is unite those who have already initiated steps to bring a peaceful transition to democracy in Venezuela. We'll start with those because those are the core groups which I believe can make this peaceful transition or assist our colleagues and friends in Venezuela toward a peaceful transition.
Could you explain also, because as you say, Canada has a relationship with Cuba. Prime Minister Trudeau has called Cuba an ally when he was in Havana. Why is there a difference between Canada's attitude to dictatorship in Cuba and in Venezuela? Why the sense of urgency to restore democracy in Venezuela but not in Cuba?
Listen, we are listening to the voice of the Venezuelan people and the elected leader, which is Juan Guaido. When Juan Guaido was here, he did, and as you're well aware, we are facing, and countries behind me represent countries which have faced unprecedented human crisis in terms of migration. We have more than 6 million people who have been displaced. We also saw evidence of a devastation with respect to the environment that's going to take generations to repair. So there's an urgency to act, and our approach today and our steps today are guided by the President Guaido, which is the one we recognize as the elected president of Venezuela. He asked the Lima Group, he asked each and every one of us to play a meaningful difference, and that's what we're trying to do today. We are respecting the voice of the Venezuelan people and its rightfully elected leader, which is Juan Guaido.
Minister Julio Rivas from Agencia F, Spain. You're talking about reaching out other countries, but why have you been unable to get the support from other countries in the region, Latin America and the European Union?
Well, we're talking to a lot of people. I just came from the Munich Security Conference, and I did speak to my European colleagues. They're well aware that we are hosting today the Lima Group, and certainly, first we needed to talk amongst each other. I mean, that's the first step. When you're part of a group, you first have to see whether we speak with one voice and what's the journey we want to engage with each other. Today, we leave united in the journey. So now it's going to be for each and every one of us, my co-chair, but all the colleagues behind me, to engage with the international community, different countries. You mentioned a number of them. There'll be many more, because I think we see the power of unity. And one also word that was sent by the representative of Venezuela was the sense of urgency. There's a real sense of urgency to restore democracy in Venezuela, and therefore not only we're going to apply all our minds and our efforts to bring more people to the group, not necessarily the Lima Group, but in terms of our journey, but also making sure that we engage with them on the way forward that we have crafted together, which are the steps to restore democracy in Venezuela.
And if I may, a question in Spanish for Minister Meza.
It's been a number of years since the Lima Group was formed. The request or the demand from the outset has been the holding of elections in Venezuela. So what progress can you show? How can you show that these meetings are, in fact, bearing fruit? Well, it is true that from the outset, the Lima Group has called for free elections in Venezuela. But I think that right now we have aimed to convey a message of unity from the group, and also a matter which is of the utmost urgency, which is that we can wait no longer given the humanitarian crisis, and that we must speak with a single voice, not only as a group, the foreign ministers we met with today, but that we must work with other actors, and that the matter at hand is that there must be free and transparent presidential elections with international support and with institutions that have the necessary legitimacy to ensure that these elections, in fact, do represent the will of the people of Venezuela. That is the objective of this meeting, and that is the message. We are united in furthering this goal, and I'm sure that we can receive support from other groups, such as the International Contact Group, with whom we have already met before, and we're certain that with this objective in mind, we will be able to work even more actively to achieve a return of democracy to Venezuela.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming here. Merci tout le monde. Merci.
Thank you all.
Muy bien, very good. Excellent. Thank you.